about, you can say it, the heroes of what?
Kintsugi Heroes.
Kintsugi Heroes. And we're talking about how you create a ripple effect for people, but you don't realize what you're actually doing. The things that are happening, there is something happening under what you're doing that's going to continue after you. And the important thing is that what you're doing, and we'll just bring this back in so that people on Facebook can know, that you create a safe space for, I'll say that again, a safe space for men to express themselves, to show their vulnerability, to be able to know that they're being seen and heard in a space which respects them for who they are, and that they can say things in there without any judgment.
Absolutely. And it's incredibly powerful when you know that you're truly being heard. And as I said, it's the focus of the support in Australia is very much at the bottom of the cliff. Have the ambulances there. We're not very good at focusing on prevention, and if we can bring this back, and through conversations, through mentoring, through sharing stories, um, we can help reduce the suffering that people experience, but also reduce the impost, the financial burden. I mean, the worst case, or what I believe is the worst case, is suicide's been costed $1 million by KPMG. So that loss of productivity plus a whole lot of other negative aspects of that. So being able to prevent that. Uh, Faye, can I come back to we've both shared the word
Go
kintsugi a
for it.
few times. So I hadn't heard of this till it was suggested to me as a name for this second charity. So kintsugi is a Japanese art form. And the legend is there was a Japanese emperor who had some valuable pottery, and over time it chipped and cracked and showed the signs of wear and tear. And he said the craftsmen fix it, make it new. But what they did, they repaired it, they put it back together using a precious metal like gold. And now when you look at it, it's far more beautiful, it's far more valuable than what it was before. So it's a great metaphor for the lived experience of Faye and Ian and many other people who've overcome this adversity. The value to the community, the value to their own resilience. So it helps people see I guess, the hidden value that's behind that. And there's been people, one of the people who shared their stories as a Kintsugi hero is Dr. Dinesh Palapana. He was a Sri Lankan migrant who was involved in a serious car accident that severed his spine. He's in a wheelchair. After going through some really hard stuff, he went on and he got his medical qualification. He's now a doctor in the emergency department at Gold Coast Hospital, and he
Mm-hmm.
gone on and got a law degree. And in the conversation, the host asked him, if you could go back to how you were before the accident, fully able, but to be exactly how you were, would you do it? And he said, no, I wouldn't want to do that, because there's mental health issues and all that sort of stuff. So he's found his purpose through that. There's another guy, Lloyd, who was an ice addict. And he says it's the best thing that happened to him. He now runs a drug rehabilitation program in South Australia, in Adelaide, where he helps get people out of addictions. And there's so many stories like this. To me, I mean, I guess I've been through a cancer journey, but I haven't been through anything like the journeys of these other people, and how they can say, well, I'm glad that I went through that. I mean, I struggle with it, but it keeps coming through this value that lived experience provides them, and this passion to then help others who may be experiencing the same thing.
Can
And
I ask you
yeah,
one thing? Was the name of that guy in Adelaide's name Simon?
no, no, Danny Lloyd was the guy
Right.
who amazing experience, heavily addicted. He actually had a life-changing moment. He went to Mount Kilimanjaro to spread the ash of his dear friend who'd been murdered,
Oh, okay.
and then he used all of his own experience. He actually ran a similar program in Alice Springs. So um, there's so many people like that. There's a guy who runs Destiny Rescue who helps get young kids out of sexual slavery throughout the
Mm.
world, and just the adversity experience he had, and then how they then channel all that energy. But I could give you case. So could I one more? Uh, Doctor Professor Gregory P. Smith, um, uh, uh, physically abused as a child, abandoned into an orphanage, classified as a psychopath, lived as a drug addicted, alcohol addicted hermit outside of Byron Bay, and then had this transformation. He's now Professor Gregory Smith. He advises New South Wales government on homelessness. He's got some worldwide corporate. He's engaged with them. An amazing transformation. He's been on Australian Story a couple of times and he's given some TED talks. Amazing. But there's the Jenny who went through relationship breakdown and lost her identity. The podcast last week was a guy who's got stage 4 cancer. Still at this moment doesn't know what the result is going to be, but the wisdom and the insight and the passion these people provide, these are the things that are giving me the education, the understanding, the learning about life and love that I didn't get to that extent in my previous 60 years.
Yeah, the stories that you hear, and I get the privilege of hearing some stories similar to those. It's an honor to actually have them share those stories with you. And it's an eye-opener to understand how people have lived, because we never see things like that. We never experience things like that. And to bring it to the fore, there are a lot of people out there who are living like that somewhere in the world. And in Australia, you look at the people that live on the street. What's their stories? Why are they on the street? Why do they sit there and beg and all this sort of thing? And you wonder where they've come from and how they got there in the first place. Is it by choice, or is it by something else? They need to escape from some sort of abuse or whatever. So the best place for them is to get onto the street. But they create a family of their own
Yeah,
on the street.
I think now talking to me here, we need to be careful making judgments.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who shared his story, and I chat to people generally before they share it. I don't host the conversations. And he talked about he and his wife signed up for IVF, and they got sold the dream. And for 10 years, they went through this IVF program and then ultimately pulled the plug on it. And to be honest, and this guy set up a support group for men who can't have kids. Now, I didn't even think that was a thing. I hadn't even thought about that before. And in the end, about just a pre-conversation, I said to him, well, can I ask a question? Sure. Did you think about adoption? He said, and you've got no idea how offensive that is to ask someone like in his position. And I immediately apologized. It's okay. I cope with that. But all their heart, their finances, their dream have been tied up into this thing. And you go along this journey and then not to have the result. And how agonizing would it be to at some point stop? And I mean, that journey would have been full of pain and loss and negative
Emotional.
emotions.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
it's given me an insight into something I would never have normally been exposed to.
Yep.
And so I guess the hesitation is that people like me, we make judgments on that, or on migrants or refugees or people in a wheelchair or whatever, homeless people, without being in their position, without going through their journey. And one of the things I like to see through the Kintsugi Hero stories, to people like me will get a better understanding. And I went to a book writing workshop because we're producing a number of books. I've got another 2 underway at the moment. And the coach said, who's your book for? I said, oh, it's for everyone, everyone. She said, not good enough. Narrow it down. But I said, it is for everyone. And then she made me go away and think about it. And in the end, I came back. This book is for Ian 10 years ago. This book is for the Ian who didn't understand all this stuff, didn't know who he had a less idea of who he was or whatever. And yeah, so hopefully there's a lot of Ians out there who are going to get some value from these free resources that we provide to the community.
So they're free, that you don't charge anything for them.
Everything's free.
Right. And wow, that's pretty amazing, because I mean, to print books and to print multiple books is a costly exercise in itself. To actually put a book together, it's time consuming and costly and all the rest of it. So to hand them out free to the community is even greater to be able to do that. So congratulations. And I think, yeah, look, should it be free? Because I sometimes say, if it's free, people just take it for granted and expect it. If it's charged a little, say $5, then people have an appreciation for it on a different level. So question is.
Yeah. So it's a great point. So we have these projects, and I mentioned at the moment we're working on the Hunter Valley flood stories. In fact, the book's in the final stages design. So we'll have an event there, and we'll get some of the heroes who've shared their story up on stage, and there'll be some book signings, and then the books are just handed out. So I hear what you're saying, but it gets to the heart of what that community is. That those books will be gratefully accepted
From the
their story.
community that's experienced. Yeah.
It's a permanent resource. And those books obviously would be useful. There's floods in Queensland or other areas and they're also published as ebooks as well. So we get some funding to produce these resources. And I'm hoping, like with the mentoring men, I mentioned before that a philanthropist I've never met just got on board. And my hope and expectation, I'm stepping out in faith that with Kintsugi Heroes, there'll be other people who'll get on board. I want to do stories around cancer journeys. This one I'm really passionate about is the role that animals play in mental health of their owners. And we're progressing that. Studies show that people on their own who have an animal live longer and are happier than people who don't have a pet. And they bring pets into hospitals, and even a horse I've heard.
Oh, really?
And we're doing our launch of the flood book at an alpaca farm, and there's
Watch they don't spit at you.
well, there's equine therapy around the mental health that they have 2 experts. They have a psychologist looking at the person, and they have an animal expert looking at the animal. And horses and alpacas can somehow, I don't know how, they detect the mental health of other people there. So,
horses are absolutely amazing. They can detect if someone's scared of them 50 meters away.
Yeah.
They're very intuitive, and they're used for, I know someone who trains in disability. They're used in disability, but they're also used in leadership. And I did a program, and we had to do all this stuff. It was really interesting how you take the horse around and how the horse relates to you and everything like that. And at the end, we were just having a chat, and the horse put his head on my shoulder and closed his eyes. It was so content. But there are people that are fearful of horses, and they've used horses for many years for people with disabilities. So they can do so much good. I didn't realize that alpacas could do the same. And I think it's quite fascinating that, even having an animal of some kind that shows no judgment or anything, like can't answer you back, but can show you how they feel if they are hurt or something. But yeah, amazing creatures to have as a companion when you're sitting in a space of you think there's no return or whatever.
There's been
Loneliness.
people who are considering taking their own life. The thing that stops them, who's going to look after the animal?
Yep. Yep. Those sorts of things. So it's really it's great that if you can have an animal and just nurture it, because they take animals. My little dog used to breed dogs that were taken into hospitals and old people's homes and things like that. So they're toy poodles and cavoodles and things like that are actually used to take in to hospitals or to aged care homes for nurturing, because it just gives a different feel to people. There's a love there that you find nowhere else.
I mentioned the struggles I had as a teenager, and my best friend often was a dog called Lassie.
Lassie.
And there's this big pipe in a laneway by the side, and we go and sit in the pipe. Dogs have just got this incredible unconditional love, and
Yep.
always happy to see
Yep.
amazing animals.
Yeah,
And
they are.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, Ian, we're coming to the end of the show. So tell us where people can get in contact with you.
So my email address is Ian at Kintsugi. Now
Spell
it's a
it.
difficult word. KINTSUGI Heroes HEROES .com.au.
Right.
Or you can go to our website